Welcome to Uniting the Cults podcast. If you're not aware what this podcast is, it's connected with the Uniting the Cults organization. You can find out about that through my Twitter, unitingthecults.com, and the subreddit for Uniting the Cults. Um, there's going to be multiple series in this podcast. One of them is this one, which is uh, it's called "Why Is Everybody Stupid?" It's connected to the same concept of what I've been saying for Uniting the Cults, which is every group is exhibiting cult-like behaviors. Every person has some stupidity. Um, this question came up in my life when I was really young, like 5 years old, first grade. I remember asking my mom, "Why is everybody stupid?" And instead of answering me, she said, "I can't." She didn't answer me. Is my point. I was kind of on my own figuring this out, and and similar to the idea that every group is acting like a cult. Um, every person, what happens oftentimes is we see somebody doing something stupid, but then we also recognize that we do that same thing. So, for this episode, I'm going to be talking about a Reddit post that I made um, in the ex Muslim subreddit. Um, so let me go there now and let's get started.
So I have here my post. Many people think they can or that they need to learn more criticisms of Islam so they can reject it. I see this question a lot, and it's people thinking about it for themselves, not for other. Well, they also think about it for other people, but a lot of times these people are thinking about it for themselves. Um, so they already realized Islam is wrong, like in the past, sort of not fully. Um, and they don't know this basic thing that all you need to do is find a single flaw, which is what got you to reject Islam in the first place. You found a single flaw. Um, I'm sure other people did things like ignore that first flaw and keep going, ignore the second flaw and keep going, and eventually they left Islam. But they're in this position now where they see 100 flaws. They're still sort of not sure. They still think about things like, what if Islam is true? And I want to talk about why their mind is working this way. Um, so I say here, it's silly to think that you need more than one criticism. You need just one. This is what we do in every field where we say we're doing the scientific approach, like in physics. With any physics theory, if we find one flaw, it is wrong. Um, an example flaw is the physics theory makes a prediction about reality. We design an experiment to see if that prediction actually happens. If the experimental result is that the prediction doesn't happen, then the theory is wrong. We don't try to, we don't say to ourselves, or in physics, physicists don't say, oh, we need to find more ways that this theory is wrong before we can reject it. And by the way, if that was the way things work, how many flaws? How many flaws does it need? What's the objective method? It seems like these people are going by feelings and they don't know how to guide their feelings or control their feelings. And so it would be like asking them, how many flaws do you need to see before your feeling switches to, I don't believe this or whatever. And there isn't an answer to that. And that's why this whole thing of, hey, I need more criticisms of Islam makes no sense. So I go on to say here, Why would you want to use a special method for Islam that isn't used for any other category of human knowledge? So the special method for Islam here is, hey, I need to find more flaws so I can reject it. Why would you use that method when we don't use that method for any other category of human knowledge, for any other theory, for anything else? And if you do think that is used in other places, please let me know so I can, well, if I'm wrong, I want to get on the right side of the truth. And if you're wrong, well, I want to find out that stuff so I can make another post like this to address it, to help more people that are dealing with this. Um, if you do think that special method makes sense for Islam, but not the other, everything else, then you should really have an explanation of why that is the case. If you don't, then you are uh, using ad hoc reasoning, like reasoning for a special situation that you don't use anywhere else. And that's not in epistemology, we recognize that as an incorrect method of logic. I want to go through some of the comments. Here's a good one. You don't have to eat the whole apple to know that it's rotten. And I added to it, you don't have to eat any of it really to know that it's rotten. You can look at it. Um, Meaning, that's the metaphor. So the literal meaning here is you don't actually have to experience Islam to know that it's wrong. You can read about it and look at it from far to know that it's wrong. Islam is as useful as my toenail fungus. I don't know what that's all about. Islam and nail fungus are ugly, old, they serve no purpose, cock blocks you when reveal that you're part of the religion of white collectors that forces you to wash your wudu. Feet 5 times a day. Wet feet and religion are irritating and uncomfortable. Okay. Based. I didn't know what this word meant in the past. Recently, I found out it means like you're saying something is good or true. You could just tell something is shit from the first sight. There we go. That's what I said. Just like shit. You don't have to taste it first. It is just so clear that you don't have to. But they try to push the opposite narrative. Ridiculous. True, but I think most ex-mooses do in fact need to learn more to be comfortable enough to reject it. It's pretty easy to dismiss 1, 2, or even 10 pieces of evidence against Islam, or at least that's how it was for me. I needed a whole lot of reasons for it to finally come crashing down because my devotion was stronger than my doubts for so long. Maybe there's some truth to this, but here's the problem. This method, it doesn't actually work because even when you think you finally rejected Islam, if you continue with that same method, like where's the dividing line? How many flaws do you need to see? Uh, I don't think it works well. Maybe okay, so maybe what this person is saying that they did this and then eventually, and maybe now they don't think Islam is true and they don't have any of those weird thoughts like what if Islam is true. But maybe what happened is their epistemology changed in the meantime and they didn't notice. Um, You are right, but this requires a background in science or logic to realize that. Yes, and that is what people need to be learning to fix this problem. To prove something infallibly, you have to use math or logic. To disprove something, you need to show one counterexample. I don't think he understands the infallibly part. We do not have access to infallibility. Humans don't have access to it. Uh, I think it's because it's very hard to give up something you've been believing in your whole life And if you've been a Muslim and learned a lot of things that increased your belief in Islam, you'd want to know all the flaws in those things so that you have no reason to left to believe. One of the big issues is how vague Islam is. You don't like a hadith, there's a chance it isn't true. You don't like a verse in the Quran, you just need to understand what it means. Yes, the point about vagueness, and here's the thing, any vagueness at all is a flaw, and is enough to reject the claim. So every single one of the vague statements in the Quran, every one on its own is enough to refute Islam. And I mean because Islam claims to be perfect, and that means no vagueness. Somebody called me a Muslim troll. I guess it was an ex-Muslim doing that, which is weird because there's nothing about my post. I mean, I wasn't even being like sarcastic where somebody could easily miss the sarcasm and think I was on the side of Islam, but I didn't do any sarcasm here. So I don't get that. That's it.